Hi, I'm Janet Fielding. I played Tegan in Doctor Who, the five-ish Fangirls. Have a good time.
The tangents we continue all the way to episode 233 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, and we're headed to the end of the world. Don't worry, it's not far. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad to join us. Let's start off like we do every week with a virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel from very wet Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone.
Hello.
And with the end of that world, we got a rockin' soundtrack to go along with it.
Yes, we do.
It's so wet outside, but as I was just saying before we started, as long as it's just rain and not any fish, we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you feel a tug at your pant leg and it is a lobster, run.
Skip the melted butter, just
Yep.
vamos.
Yep. Just give up. It's all over. Anyway, let's do the. So sorry. This is hibernation weather almost. I think it was winter. Anyway, news. Not a whole lot of news again this week. But Salt Lake Fan X they're having their fall event this September, and they did their regular press conference thing that they do, where they announce a buttload of guests, and they announced a buttload of guests for the upcoming event, including Kiefer Sutherland, who I think everybody knows from one thing or another. That's my brother's favorite person on the entire planet is Kiefer Sutherland. He got to meet him last year at a con, and you would have thought that he had met, I don't know, it'd be like the equivalent of me meeting Weird Al. So, who I have met, and I think my brother did a better job in his celebrity encounter than I did. But anyway, so Kiefer Sutherland, Christina Ricci. If you're a fan of the Rocky franchise, Dolph Lundgren played Ivan Drago.
Or if you saw the 80s movie He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, he played He-Man.
Okay.
Yes, I do have a DVD category.
Yeah. There's a bunch of people that I recognize the things that they're from, but don't necessarily know them that well.
Oh, Megan Follows. I remember watching Anna Green Gables. Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't watch Lucifer, but if you watch Lucifer, apparently Leslie Ann Brandt is going to be there.
Cool.
There's some voice actors. Charles Martinet, who's very, you see him pop up on the convention circuit quite a lot. He's the voice of Mario in the video games.
Carlos Valdez, Cisco from The Flash. Nice.
Kel Mitchell. One half of Keenan and Kel.
Welcome to Good Burger. Would you like a good burger?
Welcome to Good Burger. Oh, Good Burger. Take your order. So, one that we definitely know and have talked about quite a bit, Lana Parrilla.
Yes.
Who was Regina on Once Upon a Time. So,
yes.
That's really cool.
So if you were kind of debating, you got some good ammo to make your decision.
Yeah, really. And there'll be more where that's coming from, I am sure.
Yes.
So
Like, it like seems to be like they pick bits and pieces of like you got like action actors. You have 90s stars. You have fantasy. You have video game voice actors. You have anime voice actors. You have like so many different people. Like anyone who's going would have at least one person that they're gonna be excited about.
Yep. You know, the days of, you know, like the comic convention circuit being just like William Shatner and the like are long gone. So these days you get anybody and everybody. So
There's Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. I mean, he does voice acting now, but it does amuse me, like NSYNC, like 90s boy band.
Yep. So, that's cool. Then obviously how to get tickets and everything can be found on the Fanix website. So and then for members of the Clone Club who have, you know, sad that the series Orphan Black has ended and have been missing the adventures of the clones, you're in luck because the story is going to continue in a audio series for a company called Serial Box. So, and then Tatiana Maslany is going to come back and do essentially what she did for the TV show. She's going to play a whole bunch of clones. So, probably a little easier maybe this time around because she don't have to worry about costumes and makeup. She just has to do the voices. Which will be interesting to see how they accomplish that. So, you know, it's one thing for like, you know, like what we experienced in Big Finish where, you know, you've got recognizable voices, but they only play essentially one character. Although every now and then you will get some plots that require characters to play other characters, at least for part of the storyline. Go listen to Zagreus if you want an example. Weird story. Anyway, so it'd be interesting to see how they make it work where you have one person playing multiple people. Essentially, it's against herself too. So, as they interact with each other. So.
That's really interesting. I was really impressed with how she did it on the show. So I can't wait to see or hear how to do it with this.
Yeah.
So the hubby of one of the clones might be off doing something.
Yeah.
Little side mission.
Maybe. I don't know.
Did you ever watch it, Rachel? I don't remember.
Nope. I did not.
I need to rewatch it. I think I got busy, so I didn't finish the last season.
I think I thought about it, and it was on Netflix. By the time I think I thought I was going to get around to it, it wasn't on Netflix anymore. So, oh well. So that's it for news, actually. Once again, kind of quiet, but that's okay. Not a problem. Fandom Christmas is coming.
Yes.
It's next month, so
Yeah. Fandom Christmas and the internet going kablooey.
Fan of
March, yeah.
Christmas, and then a month after that, Disney Fan of Christmas. So we get 2 Christmases this year. 2 Fan of Christmases this year. No.
And we
Don't
ain't
worry.
delaying it.
News is coming. That being said, we do have feedback, as I mentioned last week. I had got around to piecing together Shalane's feedback that she sent in parts. But I did promise that we would get to this week. So Shalane's comments about our Aladdin episode. She gives us a few more Easter egg tidbits that we didn't necessarily mention as we were talking trivia and that sort of thing. She says in the third Aladdin movie, the merchant reappears at the end of the movie to close it out. And then there is another famous character portrayed by Robin Williams that makes a cameo also in said movie, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh,
It has been a long time since I thought one. I don't remember that. I have to watch that now.
yeah.
She said Aladdin is in her top 2 favorite Disney princess movies, and Jasmine is her second favorite Disney princess after Mulan. She said she also was Jasmine for Halloween when she was like 9 or 10. And she said back in elementary school they had like I guess like a circus with dancers that I guess were kind of dressed like Jasmine, you know, like the pants, I guess. And they danced to some of the music from Aladdin. And she says she didn't get to be one of the Jasmine dancers, which made her kind of sad. But she got to be a cheerleader instead. And then in the Broadway version of Aladdin, the original voice of Jafar came back to play him on Broadway.
Cool.
That's right. I remember hearing about that and totally forgot to mention. So thank you, Shailene.
Mm-hmm. Oh, little bits of trivia there. Cool. All right. So moving on to this week's topic. I'm so excited about it.
Me too.
We've been
I've been
chomping at the
on.
bit for this one since what, last week, or when we all started binge watching?
Yeah, from when it dropped, like almost 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was not able to binge it right away, and that made me very sad.
Dang, I was like, I really want to watch it. I had to wait.
Yeah, unfortunately, my days of like sitting down and binging something is not as easy as it used to be. It's like the new season of Jessica Jones dropped last Friday. Have I watched any of it yet? No. I pulled it up on Netflix to see how many episodes are in the season. That's as far as I got. So yes, I did not get to binge this right away, but since then I've watched it all the way through twice. So
I have to.
and have reread the book and am working on the script book as we speak. So, and have had the soundtrack on repeat.
Same.
So yes, as we teased last week's episode, we are talking Good Omens.
Yes. And for those of you who are wondering about physical copies, they are available for pre-order, but no release date yet.
And if you need a fresh copy of the book, the novel, the original novel, copies are out there. But and apparently it has
Back up on the charts.
It has gone. It has helped book sales because as of the New York Times book review of bestsellers paperback list as of June 23rd, so I guess an upcoming printing, I guess. I don't know how often they do this. But Good Omens is actually on the bestseller list at number 9, which it never made it onto the list
Sweet.
before.
Because this book is 30 years old.
Yes. Yeah. Neil
Also-
Gaiman tweeted that, and he said, "I wish Terry was still here."
Yes.
He said Good
He would
Omens
be
has
happy.
never made it onto the New York Times list in 30 years, and he would have been happy. And I think satisfied. So the Amazon series has helped with the book sales, the novel itself, and then there is a physical book copy of the script, which it's not just what you see in the series. This is Neil Gaiman's script that he wrote. So this is not the finished product. So it's not like they took the TV series and printed it in novelization form. It's essentially Neil Gaiman's working script when he was working on adapting it for TV, because there are scenes in here that don't happen. There are scenes in here that are out of order than how they ended up in the actual miniseries. There's lots of notes from
Those notes are interesting.
Neil himself.
I'm taking my time reading through this because I know I probably could have pulled it all later and steamrolled through it. It's
yeah.
Yeah,
gonna
same.
take our time. It's kind of like a Harry Potter book, almost ooh, give me input.
Yeah, because there's directions you'd expect in a script. Crowley makes the screen go blank, or exterior war zone. But then there's notes in here from Neil. It's I'll call these groups green, blue, and brown. So.
And the blue group is kind of this way because of this. And
Yes. Yeah. So it's a fun read. You would not necessarily think that reading a script for something would be that entertaining, but this is. So
I mean, I do, because I love scripts. I have quite a few script books. I'm weird, I know, but
yeah, wow.
So
I still have a few from the early days of Buffy the Vampire Slayer when they'd publish the script books, because sometimes you get more background information. Then it's sweet.
I have a script book for Titanic.
Oh, cool.
And this thing it's huge.
Yeah,
It's-
I don't know how much to expect. It's
485 pages. So, because there's essentially it's 6 scripts shoved into books, because there's a script essentially for each episode, even though scenes ended up in different episodes. And then there's the deleted scene of the other 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Never made it into, so.
Did anyone else get a little teary-eyed at the dedication was for Terry, just for Terry?
I got teary-eyed.
Yeah. Which, considering at least my copy of the novel is 412 essentially pages, but that includes things like introduction, and there's a foreword, and there's a whole section of a Q&A, and then there's a whole section on Neil Gaiman writing about Terry Pratchett, and there's a thing about Terry Pratchett writing about Neil Gaiman. So
You have that too on my ebook copy, which I'm I'm debating about buying the physical copy too. Like I have the ebook copy, I have the audio book, I have the Radio 4 production. I have the physical script book, and now I want to get the physical. Actually,
well, the funny thing is I picked this up sometime late last year, I think. Actually, it may have been early last year. It was winter time, I can tell you that. It was snowing. I was killing time before I needed to go somewhere, and it was cold, and it was snowing, and it was gross out. And but I needed to kill some time. There was a bookstore, and at the time I was kind of in between reading things, and so I went in just to kind of browse and see if anything jumped out at me. And I got to, fiction or whatever, alphabetized by author's last name. And of course, there's a section with Neil Gaiman. And there was this, I'm sure some of the Sandman series probably. And I know there was a copy of American Gods. And I knew about American Gods because of the series, the TV series. Mm-hmm. And I'd heard good things about that. But the book is huge.
Yes.
And I didn't necessarily want to start on something that big with an author that I didn't know anything about. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. So I ended up picking up Good Omens, even though I did not know anything about the book, but I recognized Terry Pratchett's name as well, even though I've never read of any of his stuff either. I've never read any of the Discworld or anything. But I was like, well, I've heard good things about both of these authors, and they wrote a book together, so therefore the book must be good. And it's a lot smaller than American Gods. So I picked it up on a whim, essentially, and within not even the book itself, I was like, okay, well, this is a thing. This should be interesting. Like before I even got to page 1, like the part, like the in the book where it has like the address for like the publisher and the copyright and ISBN number and blah blah blah, all the like copyrights and trademarks. Mm-hmm. At the very top it says caveat: bringing about Armageddon can be dangerous. Do not attempt it in your own home. Mm-hmm. Just reading that, I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
It's going to be a fun ride.
Okay, let's do this thing. So, so I read it, and I thought it was quite funny. So, and then they made the announcement that they were making a TV series out. I'm like, cool.
Because I was like that, like when you discover something new to you, mm-hmm. and then not too much later, oh look, this is gonna become a thing. You get more of it. Oh,
serendipity.
Yeah.
Because
not only is this going to be a thing, it's going to be a thing with people in it, which is even better.
Actors that you know and like, yes.
Yes.
Because I had a paperback copy through, I want to say probably my first couple years in college. I remember reading it, lending it to somebody, never getting it back, picking up an ebook copy, and by that time I had kind of started getting into supernatural, and then seeing Crowley. It's like, wait a minute, not seeing Crowley. Two different, same name, yes, but one's a demon, an angel.
Crowley was an actual person.
Yes.
That's the thing. There's
Yes.
Aleister Crowley, who lived from 1875 to 1947. He was an English occultist. He was branded the most evil man alive by a newspaper publisher. Apparently, he conducted rituals to try and produce the Antichrist, who he named Moonchild. Apparently, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin was such a big fan that he bought his house near Loch Ness.
Interesting.
I can presume that this is the same Crowley that the Ozzy Osbourne song is named after as well.
Probably.
I think so. My dad would know. He's a big Ozzy fan.
Yeah. Because whenever I see the name Crowley, all I hear is Ozzy Osbourne's voice in my head going, Mr. Crowley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know any other parts of the song. I just know that part. Mr. Crowley. Let's talk about, let's see, how do we want to do this? Because this is a good. We've got two interesting things here. We've got a book that's 30 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got this made-to-TV adaptation that's been out for a couple of weeks, but has been in the works almost as long as the book has been around, and has been tried to. Various people have tried to adapt it and have never been able to accomplish it. Terry Gilliam of Monty Python actually came the closest over a number of years. In early 2002, he had investors. He had like $50 million already raised from various investors. He had, think of this casting, Robin Williams was going to play Aziraphale, and Johnny Depp was going to play Crowley.
That's interesting.
That was I could see that as a team up.
Yeah. But he was still needed to get a studio to back the production, and apparently every studio he went to and every producer he went to told him the same thing: nobody wants to see Johnny Depp movies.
Wait,
because this was pre Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, this was
okay.
This was a year before Pirates, because Pirates came out in 2003, I think.
Yep.
Imagine those people like, oh, wait.
Yep.
Oops, kind of misspoke.
There was that, and I got this piece of trivia off of IMDb, and it doesn't explicitly say, but what it says is his confidence in the project was completely shattered when he found himself in a post 9/11, yet pre Pirates of the Caribbean Hollywood. So talking about the end of the world so soon after the tragic events of September 11th also probably wasn't the best timing either. But yeah, so Terry Gilliam was actually the closest person to actually getting an adaptation off the ground, but it just never worked. But then when Terry Pratchett was diagnosed with dementia and his health was deteriorating quite rapidly, because I guess the type that he was diagnosed with was extremely rare and actually affected you physically more than it did mentally. So physically, I guess his body was failing pretty rapidly, and he essentially made Neil promise that he would do the adaptation, preferably so Terry would live to get to see it. Unfortunately, he didn't. But this was essentially a deathbed promise that Neil Gaiman made to Terry Pratchett that he would do the adaptation for this.
And he came through and delivered with flying colors.
Yes, yes, he absolutely did. And he did. If you're gonna have anyone adapt a book, it should, the person that helped write the book is definitely a good place to start. As far as making something that, as far as if you take the book, the novel as is, it's a great story, but it's all over the place as far as characters and locations and how the plot moves along, because there's a lot of bouncing from people to people to place. Sometimes, with we'd bounce to someone else involved in the plot for like a couple of sentences, and then it would bounce off to someone else. So
I listened to the audiobook after I watched the show, and if I hadn't watched the show, just listened to the audiobook without reading it, it would have been a little confusing. Like, wait, but just where's the jumping scene here?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's there's a lot of things that even after rereading the book, after watching the miniseries, I can now have the visuals in my head from the miniseries, which help clear things up. But there's still some things where the way that it's written in the novel, it's this isn't as crystal clear as it is on TV. So.
The baby switching scene.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
When I saw the whole adaptation, I'm just like, okay, now I can understand it.
Yeah.
Because that section in the book, it was just I don't know how many times I'd reread it. I think I even tried with a side piece of paper to,
Yeah. Yeah, it's baby A, baby B, baby, wait.
Which baby are we talking about now?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's in the miniseries with them, with the 3-card Monty, essentially. That helps. And actually just literally seeing the babies in with their different colored blankets wrapped around them and their different colored hats makes it easy to keep track of too, because it's after reading the book for the first time, I understood that the Antichrist baby ended up with the wrong family than what they intended, but it wasn't until we got the TV adaptation where it's oh, so not only did the Antichrist baby end up with the wrong family, but that family's baby is now with the other family. It's the biological baby Young ended up with the American diplomat family, and their baby went off to win awards for his tropical fish.
Is Warlock's a good name?
Yeah. But again, that was one of those things where it didn't necessarily translate in the book. Where all the babies ended up. So. And I think it wasn't until I just reread the book that I realized that the superfluous baby is Greasy Johnson. It's okay. Good.
Well, and just in the different sisterhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. And they trimmed Neil when he broke it down into essentially, the 6 episodes. He did a really good job of trimming out stuff that wasn't necessary. Like when Aziraphale is looking for a body after he's been discorporated. In the book, he ends up bouncing to several different bodies. Although I do kind of miss the fact that we don't get to see an actual rendition of Jesus as the telephone repairman of the switchboard of my life. Instead of going straight to Madame, inhabiting Madame Tracy's body, like he does in the TV series, and like the other four horsemen of the apocalypse, that was something they had scripted and was going to do, and then decided to cut it. The whole Greasy Johnson and being a bully in his own gang versus them, that's cut. Adam does not have a sister in the TV series. At least she's not mentioned, so we could assume that he's an only child. There's things that aren't necessarily have to be there for the main crux of the plot got cut, but then they also make there are a lot of things in the TV series that there are references to those things. So you'll get those references and Easter eggs if you read that. That's one of the things I love about this, because Neil, and I'm sure probably the BBC/Amazon gave him free reign as far as the adapting, and how much say he had as far as direction, because he did not direct it, but as far as direction and editing and stuff, is you can watch the TV series, the miniseries, and probably be perfectly entertained, because in itself it's a very good story. It's perfectly cast, and we can talk about the cast members here in a moment. It's perfectly cast. It's shot really well. The special effects are really great. The music is great. Visually, it looks really good. And it's funny and it's entertaining. And if you've never read the book, you'd be perfectly fine. However, if you've read the novel, there are lots of little things in the miniseries that it's written and directed and acted in a way that they don't explain it to you if you haven't read the book, because that's what a lot of book adaptations do, is they assume that they're going to be people that have never read the book and are probably never going to, so then they feel like they need to explain things for the people that have never bothered to read. This, on the other hand, they don't explain diddly. There are things in there that you will get if you've read the book, but if you haven't, so sorry. They don't explain the fact that Crowley's car only plays Queen because if you leave any music in the car for more than a fortnight, it automatically plays the best of Queen. They don't explain that to you. You just hear Queen regardless of what it is, because even when he and Aziraphale are in the car at one point, Aziraphale's like, oh, let's play some music, and he's like, what is Velvet Underground? Yeah. But we never hear Velvet Underground. No. We only hear Queen.
I always just thought, because I saw the show before I read the book, I thought Crowley just really liked Queen, and he, with his demon powers, overwrite any CD, cassette, whatever he had, and just put Queen on it.
Nope.
And then when I read it, I'm like, oh, I get it.
And then there was also a little nod to Buddy Holly in the ads, the Everyday song.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. because that was going to be actually the theme song to the series. I'm so glad they decided to change that, because the theme song to this I am obsessed with.
Same.
As I mentioned last week, because the piece of art that I bought at PopCon.
Yes. Now, I did go through on one of my rewatches, and I was able to get every Queen song from all 6 episodes. So if you want me to, I could run down that, or if we're going to go episode by episode, I can just kind of insert one.
So if you just want to mention it, and then we can put the list in the show notes as well. That way, if somebody wants to make a playlist.
Sounds good. Episode 1, we had Bohemian Rhapsody, the car going to the church. It's a hard life when Aziraphale when Crowley meets Aziraphale at the hospital. Episode 2, we have We Will Rock You right before the kids meet up. These are the days of our lives before Anthema finds the book in the field, and of course Bicycle Race when she gets hit by the boys.
This is the most perfect.
Yes.
Right? She was riding her bicycle. Crowley hits her with a car. They rescue her. Aziraphale fixes her injuries and the damage to the bike. They give her a lift back to her cottage, and the Method Queen has a song about riding a bicycle.
Yep.
They're like, can we give you a lift? And then it just goes to Anathema in the back seat. They just hear bicycle. It just strikes me as so funny. I don't know why. It's just like, I was like, oh, God bless Freddie Mercury and the rest of the guys of Queen that you decided to go ahead and record that song.
Yep. Episodes 3 and 4 sadly have no Queen music, but episode 4 I did catch a Doctor Who reference with Exterminate. With the scene with Adam. Episode 5, the opening, You're My Best Friend. Exiting the back of the shop was Somebody to Love. Then there was Another One Bites the Dust. Roger Would Be Happy, the song that he had to fight for. I'm in love with my car.
Again, another perfect.
Right?
It's like they do. It's like all the way back in the 70s that, you know.
Cars engulfed in flames. And I'm in love with my car. I'm like, perfect.
That's Crowley's, theme song right there.
Exactly. Then we have a touch of We Will Rock You. Another reprise of Bohemian Rhapsody. And move on to episode 6, Bohemian Rhapsody. And then if you were wondering what the brass band was playing before the dining lunch scene, it was the brass band version of Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, which is a Queen song, but it's kind of got this 20s, 30s feel.
Nice.
Yes. So that was all the Queen.
And if you want to count this,
typed up in the notes.
You want to count this, because I was watching the trailer afterwards a lot, actually, because I do that. Under Pressure is in the first trailer.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes.
I'm one of those people who like to watch the trailers after, rewatch the trailers after I watch the movie or show. So I get that reference. I get that in context now. And trying to remember what I thought before, trying to figure out those pieces and see how close I was to. That's a weird thing I do.
No, it makes sense. No. In this case, it's one of those you can watch it back and it's like, oh, I get the context now. Unlike some other things where you watch the trailer after you've seen the movie and you're like, oh, that wasn't even in the movie. Yeah.
Yes.
Looking at you, Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
and Infinity War, actually.
I was gonna say there was. Definitely.
I'm looking at you, the Russo brothers. We have David Arnold to thank for the music. He was the composer for that amazing opening theme. That really is kind of the theme that runs through the entire series. There's you hear the same thing, the same theme with the opening credits, but I love the fact that we also get the theme at the end of each episode, but it's a different style and kind of reflects what had happened in the episode. So like at the end of the very first episode, it's the opening theme, but it sounds like it was written by Queen.
Yes,
Yeah.
and in the on the soundtrack, it's the ending theme, the one that got left in the car.
Yeah. But that opening theme, if it evokes a certain, because again, this is a BBC production, even though it was on Amazon Prime, it is first and foremost a BBC production because everything's in Britain, everybody's British. If it evokes some of the instruments used, if it gives you the feels of a certain other British television series starring the voice of Satan, that's because it's the same guy. He's also the guy that did created the theme for the Sherlock series with Benedict Cumberbatch. So. And the music is, if you listen to the soundtrack, like other than the opening theme, there isn't necessarily a whole lot of other stuff that kind of jumps out at me other than the music you hear, at least at the beginning when we're first introduced to Anathema and Newt, which to me sounds very Princess Bride.
Yes, I can.
It sounds like someone he kind of stole it. Like he could have easily stolen that from the Princess Bride soundtrack.
It had kind of the Mark Knopfler hints.
Yeah. So, but that opening theme, I'm just like, I'm obsessed with it. I don't know why.
See, like.
I just love it. So I mean, there are some TV shows that, they have a lot of TV shows that have got some really good theme songs out there. And there's some that are obviously very instantly recognizable. But even if they're good, there's sometimes, like if you're watching something on Netflix and it gives you the option to like skip, like the opening theme, the opening credits. You're like, oh, I've heard this 5 bazillion times. So you go ahead and hit skip. But then there are some that even if you have the option to skip, you don't, just because the theme is so awesome.
There's times I don't remember what show I was watching, but I was watching on Netflix and they did the automatic skip. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So I rewinded so I can watch it. Like, I like this theme too much. I'm watching it.
Like there's some that you don't skip just because they're so, like Doctor Who.
Exactly.
Skip the Doctor Who thing. Game of Thrones. That's another epic one where it's like, oh yes, I'm going to listen to this the entire way through. Although with Game of Thrones, also during the opening title sequence, there tends to be clues.
Exactly.
So you kind of want to pay attention to the opening on the map.
Which episode am I watching again? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see this in the opening. All right, I know.
Yes. It's like, oh, this is where we are. So this one, it's the same opening sequence every single time. It doesn't change, but just the theme is so good. It's like, single time. And the animation is very good. It's very Terry Gilliam-esque. It's very Monty Python, which again, there's definitely some there's some Monty Python-esque things about this, which, if you like Monty Python, then you're gonna, in theory, you'll find this enjoyable. So it's not quite as absurd as Monty Python could be, but it's still just it's that British humor is what it is. The Brits definitely have their own sense of humor, and I think you either get it or you don't. There doesn't seem to be really an in-between. And it helps that you have a really good cast as well. So let's talk about the cast. Of course, you put David Tennant in anything and you automatically get a cross-section of viewers that, they're like, oh my goodness, this is David Tennant, and just, like moths to a flame. That being said, he's absolutely brilliant, perfect casting. Apparently, when Neil Gaiman was writing the script, he had David Tennant in mind for Crowley, and therefore he wrote it with, essentially like, we're going to get David Tennant for this if it's the last thing we do. And David, once again, is absolutely brilliant. He's such a talented actor, and so, I don't know what the right word is. He's so adaptable to different genres.
Versatile.
Yes.
Yeah. He's just, obviously he was great as the Doctor Who. But
I don't know, could we call him almost the Renaissance man for the roles in that he's done? I mean, he's done Shakespeare, he's done bad guy, he's done good guy, he's done family man.
He's so, multifaceted at what he can do. Although there are bits of I could see a little bit of the Doctor
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
in his portrayal. There's the bit when they go to the what was the former convent for the nuns, now a corporate retreat resort hotel. And they encounter the former nun, and and Crowley starts like interrogating her, essentially, and Aziraphale's like, we could just ask her. And I forget exactly what it is Crowley says in response, but it's very sarcastic, like, oh, excuse me, we're a couple of supernatural entities, just looking for the whatever it is he says, but a little bit of his natural Scottish accent peeks through.
Yes.
Like, careful, David, your Scottish is showing.
Your doctor's showing.
Yes. Yeah, there's a few times. Yeah, there's a few times. It's definitely when, it's a very subtle thing. But if you watch David's run as the Doctor, there are times where he says things like, "well," or things like that, where he, it's like a one syllable word, but he draws it out. That's something he did a lot as a Doctor, and when he does it as Crowley, it's just like, I gotta remember, demon, not Doctor.
Yes. I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely love when he does that though. Like,
yeah,
I always get so excited, and whenever I see it in writing, even if it has nothing to do with like Doctor Who or now Good Omens, I have his voice in my head drawing it out.
Especially if it's a scene with it drawn out well. Instantly his version of comes right comes right to my mind.
Yep. So, I mean, we we could wax poetic about the genius that is David Tennant, and it would be well deserved. Although we've waxed poetic about David in, I don't remember, it was one of like our early mystery actor archives. We drew him, and so we've waxed poetic about David before, and probably will again in the future. And yeah, very happy that he was the one cast as Crowley. He's brilliant. That being said, I'm going to need to check my Netflix and Hulu subscriptions and see what is available that's got Michael Sheen in it.
Yes.
Because, oh my goodness, where has this man been and why have I not seen anything within him before?
No kidding.
He is freaking brilliant.
To paraphrase, precious cinnamon roll.
Yes. Please.
To bring that back.
Like, I was always like, I don't know. But, yes.
Like, the entire time that he's on the screen, even when it's just Aziraphale, you know, obviously Aziraphale and Crowley together, it's just a match made in heaven. I guess.
Yeah.
A match made in heaven and hell, I
case.
guess. Yeah, but man, his portrayal of Aziraphale is just, oh my goodness, I just love it. It is just absolute brilliant piece of casting. And he just, it's everything that how Aziraphale is portrayed in the novel, and then some. He is pretentious, but not to the point like Gabriel is, where he's just, he's gone native, essentially. You know, like both sides of his age, both of them have just kind of gone native. Like that's the whole reason that they are trying to stop the apocalypse is, you know, they don't, you could say, you know, out of the kindness of their hearts, they don't want to see all of humanity destroyed, but really they don't want all of humanity destroyed, because then who would, you know, make the bottles of wine, and who would serve them sushi, and who would serve them when they go to the Ritz, and you know.
And Aziraphale, bless his heart, running that bookstore. This is like,
it says bookstore, it's really a museum.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid someone actually want to buy something.
right.
I love the description in the book.
And the one word he keeps repeating is like, you know, I get the flashback of the gift from Princess Bride. That word is not what you think it means.
Yes. That is true. Although that ends up working out in their favor, actually.
Yes,
the proper definition. I should have pulled it up. But the according to dictionary.com. So, yeah. The proper definition of ineffable is incapable of being expressed or described in words, not being spoken because of its sacredness, unutterable. So the great plan can't be the ineffable plan because they know what it is, because they're able to speak it, and therefore it cannot be the ineffable plan.
Yep. Oh, well, and then Crowley, his brilliant idea of the prayer wheel for the
M25.
Yeah, and then the cell phone kerfluffle. It's just like, this is going to come back to bite you in the rear end, but okay. Sounded good at the time.
It's like, oh, I'm going to knock out all of the mobile phone signals in all of London. Oh, wait, I need to call Aziraphale. Sorry, all lines are busy.
Crud, I can't.
I need to get out of London to Oxfordshire. Oh, sorry, the M25 is turned into a giant wall of fire.
Yep.
Good job, Crowley.
Yep.
Yeah. And those are two things that are directly out of the novel. I mean, for the most part, most of it is pretty faithful to the novel, as opposed, other than like the stuff I said that was cut because it was really just extra fat. We don't need to know about Greasy Johnson and the Johnsonites. We don't need to know that, Aziraphale bounced around to several different bodies before, finally, landing with Madame Tracy.
Right.
As far as we're concerned, that stuff could have still happened. We just didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And was there some stuff with Dog that got cut out? It's been a bit since I've read the main book.
Yes, there's an encounter with Adam and Dog with the guy that is the guy that I forget what his name is, but he considers himself the neighborhood watch.
Oh,
when
that's right.
Anathema first shows up. And there's a scene in the book where Dog tries to molest his toy poodle, essentially.
Now that you brought that up, that's ringing some bells.
Yep. So, again, we don't see that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's kind of like the Lord of the Rings movies. If you watch the behind the scenes stuff from the first movie, if you've got that, and Philippa, who's one of the other script writers who work with Peter Jackson to adapting the books into the film, and Philippa's like, we had to cut so much because the focus needed to be on the Fellowship, and the hobbits and Aragorn and stuff. Is like that doesn't mean that that they didn't have those side adventures where they meet like Tom Bombadil. It's just we don't see it, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of look at it like that. There are some other things that they're very obvious changes. Some are small, some are quite large. Like the fact that we have Gabriel, who doesn't appear anywhere in the novel, brilliantly played by John Hamm, one of the only Americans in the series, but brilliant. Some of the looks he makes, his face, like I'm talking about the Four Horsemen being summoned, and Aziraphale's like, who summons them exactly? He just makes his face like, not my department. I have worked with people like you, and you suck.
I like when he was like, of course there has to be a war. How are we going to win if there's a war? Or how he says...
Yeah, it's just the way, the faces he makes, like, of course, if there's no war, how do we win it? Like, duh.
Yeah, not my department, above my pay grade, I'm not worrying about it.
Exactly. It's like, no, I've worked with people like you where they're like, oh no, my department, not my problem. Like, you know what, buddy?
not my circus, not my monkeys.
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It might be.
Yes.
Never mind.
One of the biggest changes, I don't necessarily say a change, but one of the biggest, I guess, additions was that huge, like, it's a pre-credit sequence, but it's like 3/4 of episode 3, where we essentially get chunks of Crowley's and Aziraphale's encounters with each other throughout the last 6,000 years, essentially, starting at the Garden of Eden and working its way up to present day. And that was something that Neil Gaiman wrote, because when he broke the novel into the 6 chunks for the 6 episodes, those 2 characters did not appear at all. And he was like, well, we can't have this without Aziraphale and Crowley. He's like, they're kind of the stars. So he came up with this just absolutely beautiful, sequence, historical sequence of the 2 meeting each other for the first time at the Garden of Eden. And which
The
we
Noah's
get
Arks
some of,
was good.
And Aziraphale giving away the flaming sword.
Yep. Oops.
Gave it away. And then
What do you mean you lost a flaming sword?
You see how their relationship and their friendship has developed throughout the centuries, so that when they get to their big fight, in, was it episode 4, I think, ish, episode 3 or 4, when they have their big fight, and Crowley's trying to convince Aziraphale that they really need to be working on this together if they want to stop Armageddon. And Aziraphale's like, we're not friends, I don't even like you. And it's like, no, I just saw that whole bit. No, you that's a lie. Sorry, Angel, you are capable of lying, because that was a big fat lie. You may not like him much this very minute,
right?
But in general, you do like him.
You're just saying that just in case if somebody's watching you and about ready to report you. You're just saying that, but we know otherwise.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the ending actually plays out slightly different than it does in the book, because we don't get in the novel, you don't get the confrontation with Satan. Adam stops that before Satan appears, and then his human dad just appears instead, instead of the talk down that essentially Adam has with Satan. I love how he just brings Satan down a few pegs. Like, if you were really my dad, you would have showed up before I turned 11.
It's so funny because you hear that in real life, and you don't expect the Antichrist to say that to his Satan dad. What?
Yeah. And the whole Aziraphale and Crowley having to answer to their respective teams, and then switching bodies essentially to save themselves, that doesn't appear in the novel. That doesn't mean that those aren't things that would have appeared in the sequel book if the sequel book had ever occurred. That's something that people may not be aware of, is that Neil and Terry intended on writing a sequel at some point, and that's where we would have been introduced to Gabriel. And I know I've seen in interviews that Neil Gaiman has said that there are several things that they pulled from what would have been the sequel into the TV series to make it work better. But other than Gabriel, I have not seen or heard anything where he's elaborated on what exactly those may be specifically. So, but we can
see what they would have thought for the sequel.
Yeah, it's how do you follow up the Armageddon? And let's say we're gonna go from Armageddon to the big one, the big one. The forces of heaven and hell against all of humanity. So, who knows? We probably never will know, actually. So, which is kind of a shame. But at the same time, it's without, I don't know if Neil would want to try and write it all on his own, without Terry there to do his part and have his influence in it. So. I've got links to all. There's going to be so much in the show notes. there may not be not a lot of news, but as far as the rest of the show notes for Good Omens related things, there's going to be quite a bit.
Treasure trove of.
Yeah, because I've collected all sorts of links. Most of them have come from Neil Gaiman's Twitter. He's sharing a lot of things. There's the official Good Omens Twitter as well. Which is like Good Omens Prime or Omens on Prime or something. I'll find the proper link for it. But I know Neil Gaiman's been like retweeting a lot of the stuff from that, and really just anything related to Good Omens. So there's all sorts of things. There's the article from when they showed some of it at South by Southwest. There's interviews with Neil Gaiman, both now, and there's one from 2017 that he did with Adam Savage from Mythbusters. There's different articles that are interviews with other people related to the production, like composer David Arnold, the costume designer. There's a Radio 1 interview with David Tennant and Michael Sheen, the production designer, the visual effects supervisor. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. And more to come, I'm sure, as people, decide to put their 2 cents in about things. So... And there's a good bit. One of the things that I really love about this is it is rewatchable. I mean, the book is rereadable, and the series is rewatchable, not just for the entertainment value, but for the Easter eggs. And there's all sorts of Easter eggs. Like there's all this stuff from the novel that they've put in there that are Easter eggs. There are nods to Terry Pratchett in there. There are references. There are lots of Doctor Who references. So there's, I don't know how many have actually been identified. I know there's 4 off the top of my head. As far as Doctor Who references, Adam's dad's license plate on the car is TARDIS backwards. The exterminate when they're talking about aliens, when the kids are talking about aliens coming from outer space, they're like, taking me to your leader. They're like, no, they like exterminate. When Crowley comes to Aziraphale in like the Victorian era, when he makes his first approach to try and ask for holy water, and he's like, I need insurance in case everything goes pear-shaped.
Yep.
And Aziraphale's like, I like pears. And Newt's when Newt goes to his job on the first day before getting fired that same day, his tie is the pattern of the Fourth Doctor's scarf.
So
and I'm sure there's more than that, but they did say that there were going to be lots of there would be several Doctor Who Easter eggs as a nod to another British institution, and you've also got David Tennant, who's one of the most popular doctors in the history of the show.
Speaking of Doctor Who, I looked it up real quick. I was curious about Michael Sheen. He's in an episode of Doctor Who.
Yes.
Which one?
It's only his voice.
Yeah, his voice. He's House in Doctor's Wife, which is written by Neil Gaiman.
Serendipity.
Yep. Again, Britain, 12 actors, 1 rock quarry. Because you've also got folks that have appeared in other things together. Like, this is not the first production that David Tennant and Michael Sheen have been in that they both starred in, but this is the first time where they've been in something where their characters interact with each other. Because I think they were, I forget what it is they were both in. And then, of course, David Tennant makes a brief, but he is in the Harry Potter series. And Madame Tracy is everyone's least favorite reporter, Rita Skeeter. I was racking my brain because I kept seeing her face. I'm like, where do I know her from? Because I don't necessarily want to straight go to IMDb. No,
Right.
I'd like to keep the mental muscles flexing and try and figure it out if I can. And I just could not figure out where I knew her from. So finally I had to go the power of the internet. I'm like, okay, yes.
Or are you thinking it's
Much more likable in this
person and you're seeing mental images?
Yes.
Not quite working.
Yeah. It's like, hey, let me change your hair and your clothes. And nope. What's funny is in Harry Potter, she actually is a witch. Here, she just gets accused of being one. Oh my. So good. So good. I don't know what else to say about this other than, if you haven't read the book, read the book. Read the book. If you haven't watched the series, watch the series. If you haven't done either, do both. If you've only done one, do the other, so you've done both. At the end of the day, do both.
Yep. Because there's rewatchability, there's rereadability. It's a gem.
Yes, it is. And maybe eventually the excitement will, for myself personally, will die off just enough that I may go and read something else written by Neil Gaiman and or Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
So,
I would,
as Brittany said, there's the audiobook.
Yes.
As well, there's the BBC4 production that they did in 2014, which, funnily enough, Josie Lawrence, who plays Agnes Nutter in the TV series, also played Agnes Nutter in the BBC4 production. There's like I said, 12 actors in Britain. So Adam's human father appeared in the Doctor Who episode Night Terrors. And Adam's mother is played by butcher her name, I'm so sorry, Cyan Brooke. In the Blitz sequence, we get an appearance he appears in everything, Mr. Mark Gatiss. And of course, Benedict Cumberbatch does the voice of Satan, and all three of those people together are the Holmes siblings from said Sherlock series. So
it's funny, I didn't either I forgot I didn't know that Benedict Cumberbatch was voicing, and even when I watched it, I didn't realize it was him. It wasn't until I watched a lot of the cast doing interviews.
Yeah.
And
he didn't do the physical performance. Someone else did the physical performance for Satan. They did put some of Benedict's facial features into Satan, but not so much that it's like, oh, that's Benedict Cumberbatch. So, because I guess Neil Gaiman had a very specific look that he wanted for Satan. So, But yeah, so someone else did the I'm assuming probably motion capture, and then Benedict did the voice, and they did just they took some of his facial expressions from saying the lines and put them into the CGI character. So
He's really good at voicing those big CGI characters.
yeah,
Yes, he is.
yeah, and it's like you kind of, and Satan doesn't appear that much, so you don't get a lot of time to like really strain your ear and try and listen. So like you really kind of have to listen and just a few ways he pronounces things. It's a very Benedict Cumberbatch. It's like, oh yeah, that's him. But if you didn't know it and you just listened, it doesn't scream Benedict Cumberbatch. It does not really sound like him unless you know like the certain way he says things. Like we were talking about David Tennant, where it's like, well, where some of these actors, they just have certain way they say things, and that comes through no matter what they're doing. So no matter how good of a chameleon you may be, at the end of the day, you can't change your vocal cords in the way that you've developed to say certain things. So in certain ways.
And here's hoping come award season we see some nominations for this.
Yes. So it should. I would hope, at least as far as the Emmys are concerned, because I know other Amazon series like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has gotten quite a bit of award recognition, both in nominations and winning. Since it started, so it shouldn't hinder the fact that this is essentially on a streaming service. So
like
and because it's also a BBC production, it should get recognition come British Awards season 2. So,
well, I mean, considering pretty much majority of the cast is British.
Yeah. So. The fact that it's a mini series will, obviously throw it into a different category, I would assume. But that is a category, limited series or production or whatever they decide to call it, depending on the awards company group thing. They all have their different labels for those things. So. Limited run, limited series, miniseries, made for TV, whatever. I fully expect it to get recognition, and if it doesn't, I may have to sick dog on you.
Yep.
I laugh that that's the actual name of the Hellhound is dog.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so.
We could probably wax poetic about this for quite a bit, but why do that instead? Just go watch it. Just go watch it.
Yes.
Just go read it. Go consume the things.
Indeed.
You won't be disappointed.
Yep. Oh. And then when you do consume said things and want to give us your 2 cents, you could do that by sending us your feedback about Good Omens or anything else we've talked about, and just like Shalane did. The easiest way to do that is to go to our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com. From there, you can send us an email or connect with us on any of our other social media accounts, including Facebook, Instagram. I'm having some issues with Twitter, not Twitter itself, the app I'm using for Twitter. There was an app update and I think something broke. So
If there's a bug in the system.
Yeah, so if they don't fix it, I'm gonna have to find another app, I think, to to handle the Twitter. So, but Instagram's good, and of course Facebook. We post a lot on Facebook, and not just announcements and trailers and things like that. We'll post random things that sometimes spark quite the discussion in the comments. Like which celebrity could kick your butt?
That just surprised me. Like, of all the things
for people to jump on and really comment on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was quite funny. So there's that. Come to our Facebook, discuss which celebrities could kick your butt.
Yep.
all of them.
Yeah.
Don't challenge Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Not gonna end well.
And there is also the link to the Goodreads book club. So if you like Doctor Who related things, we have a book club. We pick a Doctor Who related book and discuss it in Goodreads every month. So there's that. If you wish to financially support us, you could do that a number of ways, including Patreon, Ko-fi, our Amazon affiliate link, and our Redbubble store. That is that. So with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany and Bethany saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. I didn't mean to fall. I just sauntered vaguely downwards.
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review on iTunes. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official Five-ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You could also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.